Tales by Moonlight, Reloaded, powered by Storytellers Orbit Limited.
The Antidote, Episode 1. Bishara's voice tore into the still of the night, shattering the quietness that had enveloped the hills of Turkana Kingdom. The moon had long gone to bed, but King Chilimba would have no rest till he had his fill of the well between his maid's thighs. Her screams are muffled by the king's giant arms, who kept thrusting, even when poor Bishara kept struggling beneath his bulky frame. Her cat is cuddled up at one edge of her room, the only witness to the unjust treatment being meted out on its owner. The act soon ends just as it had begun, and as King Chilimba rose to adjust his thick lapa, he bellows a warning. Not one soul should hear of this, Bishara, not even your shadow, for I will haunt you if you ever breathe a word of this. And like the wind, he was gone, only that, like every mighty wind, he had destroyed a part of her that can never be fixed. Bishara dragged herself off the raffia mat. She could not bear to look down at her cat, who had sauntered to her side and was nibbling at her legs. Her gaze meets the cat's. She could see the pity in its eyes. The night was a long one. Sleep eluded her eyes, and as she sobbed quietly in her room, she wished for dawn to come. Who knows? This might be a nightmare. She will wake up tomorrow and discover that this was just a bad dream. Life went on in the palace. Her status as the chief maiden made her decision to avoid the king a child's joke. For every morning, she washed the king's feet, and at night she became his mate. There were days she wanted to escape, but then she had only 12 months left to pay her mother's debts, after which her family would be declared free. What use will her running off be if she had endured 24 moons only to return to her home a slave? So she stayed, enduring all the horrible nights when the king would storm her room in his thick lapa, smelling of burnt camwood and brandishing a smile that always made her want to throw up in his face. The day she had feared would come finally came. The seer, Jadi, had been brought to inquire about her incessant morning fever. She was found to be with child. The queen raved. Her rage swept across the room, her loud voice thundering far above the roof as her hand landed on Bishara's face. Tell me, slave, which one of the gods defiled the royal home by sleeping with you? Tears fell from their own accord. Bishara looked across the room to where the king sat on his throne. His face was indifferent. Speak up, slave, or do you need another slap to get you talking? Bishara could feel the bile in her rise. If she had powers, she would have leapt at the king and tore him to shreds. The queen's hand rose again, but Bishara was quick to stop her. Patience, my queen. Strike no more. The child I carry belongs to the king. I was raped by the king." A thick veil of silence fell on the room. Only Bishara's sobs could be heard, punctuating the silence at intervals. The king rose from his seat. "Gather the villagers," he shouted to the guards, "and fetch Jali this minute." The courtroom was a hall of men dressed in white lapa tied around their waists. The council of chiefs whispered among themselves as they waited for the king's arrival. Outside, the villagers waited, the group of freeborn clearly demarcated with the slaves, who wore red lapa with silver rings on their left ear. The king walked into the court and gave his verdict. Bishara had laid a strong allegation on the king. She was to be banished. Jali the seer led her outside the court, pouring libation after her as a way of purging the palace of the heinous crime she had committed. He saw the guilt in the king's eye and he understood. Speaking up at this time might mean a heavier punishment for Bishara, so he kept his tongue tucked behind his teeth.